Now, if you're saying I'm late for the live stream again, and you audio podcast listeners, doesn't matter to you, or if you're watching a replay later, I have a counter argument for you. I say, no, I'm actually early because I'm on Canada time. It was a big time change overnight, and outside my window, my right, your left, is St. John's, Canada. I don't really think you care about my vacation plans, nor should you. I just thought I would add that into the mix, but whatever. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching Wicked Radio live stream once again with me. I appreciate you, all the follows, downloads, all that good stuff. I appreciate it. And obviously, the number one story that continues, and I don't think it's about the details of the story or investigation anymore. I really don't. But with the Charlie Kirk story, it's now how it's being portrayed and framed for you. And this is my entire thing. And it seems like I'm picking on ABC today for a reason. They've been the worst out of the chute so far. And trying to reframe this thing, soften it for you, give you the different details. I have one overriding message for you today. Don't buy it. Don't let them do it. I mean, everything from their on-the-scene news reporters to their main network news to Kimmel, who, by the way, is a propagandist. Of course, we've all known that. What happened to late-night comedy? Awful. They've been the worst. But they've all been bad in how they present this story, but we'll get into that as well. As well as at the end of it. And I meant to talk about this yesterday, but I got all worked up talking about other stuff. Also related to media information and misinformation. It looks as though, fingers crossed, because this will be a good thing, I think, there's a deal in place for TikTok. And you're thinking, I'm an adult. I don't have time for TikTok. It doesn't matter to me. Oh, no, hold on. Yes, it does. Because the future generation, no, the now generation, the Gen Z as we call them, and millennials, trust me when I tell you, it's a fact. This is where they get their news. He who controls TikTok controls the information flow and the narrative going forward. And it looks as though a deal's in place and a deadline. We'll talk about that as well, because that's actually more important than the ABC story, believe it or not. Anyway, we'll get into it. Thanks for being here again. I appreciate your time as always. Well, one of the big story, and this is how you know that culturally this is a massively shifting story, that it's still number one trending in the world right now, the Charlie Kirk horrifying assassination story. But it's number one because of how this is making a culture shift and how everything, and you can feel it, you know it, we've talked about it, you've seen all your social media posts, of course. It's a massive change. People have called it, I agree with this. This was the day, this was the moment where I think the extremists, the crazies that happen to be on the left lost the narrative. They lost the culture because nobody trusts this anymore. Because again, like I always talk about, it's the 5% over here, the 5% over here. It's the 90% of us in the middle. Normal people woke up to this and said, political violence against somebody you happen to disagree with. Yeah, we can't have that going forward. We just can't have it. That's how this shifted. Okay? Now, where do we go from here? Now it's all about who controls the narrative and the story and what really happened. And this is where the media comes in. So yesterday was the big story. And apparently the FBI, the investigators out in Utah, I think it was their attorney general on the case, read what they allegedly, and there's a lot of controversy about this already, what allegedly they have found, dug up forensically, the text messages, the messaging between the scumbag assassin and the alleged roommate / transgender lover. I only mention that because it's relevant to the story. Now, there's a lot of us who read this and they said, this seems really too on the nose, as Scott Adams would say. It's a little too detailed, almost like he was trying to divert the attention away from this roommate person. But they did talk about it, and he read it line by line, what they were able to find. There's a lot of doubt about this, whether it's fake or not, who the heck knows. But they read that as part of the investigation, which would tell you, regardless of how engineered the text messaging was, it should tell you, and case closed, that what the media tried to tell you about this shooter being MAGA, conservative, big Trump supporter, was absolute hogwash from the beginning. And that's why, and this is where the media and specifically ABC comes into play. Now listen to this twist. Listen to this reframe and what they're trying to do. This was the main ABC breaking news report as they tried to talk about it as the Utah authorities kind of broke the news about the messaging between Robinson and the lover back home. Listen to how they try to reframe this into softening the story. Really, that's what this is about. Softening the story and bringing a human element to what essentially was a murder. Again, my message to you is, don't let them.
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate, who is transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this
touching. I saw this story, and I saw that very same ABC report in real time yesterday. I laughed out loud. I mean, throughout it's still a horrible story any way you slice it, but I laughed out loud at what they're trying to do. Really, I surprised many of us how touching the story was. You think that's by design, or do you think that was just that reporter's honest take by that? Well, hold off on your opinion and your take on that until you hear what the same network said later on in the night. And I want you to keep in mind, now, Jimmy Kimmel's monologue was from after the weekend, where it had already been debunked that Robinson, the scumbag assassin, was some sort of a MAGA Trump supporter. He is one of them. Remember, they tried that line over the weekend? By the time Kimmel did this monologue on his late night show, that had already been debunked and nobody believed it. But they're so desperate to try to get as far away from and reframe this story that he put it in his monologue anyway and tried to bring it back to life. Again, same network, and keep this in mind and tell me if you don't think their entire news division was in on this thing. This was Kimmel. Again, after this is already debunked.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Trying desperately to tell everybody that he wasn't one of them. How many Trump-supporting transgender lovers do you know, honestly? The family. But again, happened before Kimmel even got this monologue out there. The family members of Robinson, the scumbag assassin, had already said he was completely 180 over the past year and had gone way off the deep end to the left. He had just gone insane. They're saying that kind of stuff now. So much so, because apparently the family are big Trump supporters, and that's where they got that narrative. So much so that there's a report out there that the dad, who technically was the guy who turned his son in, and we can talk about that at a later date. What kind of balls and guts and moral fortitude did that take? Can you imagine that situation? Technically, as the guy who restrained him and turned him into authorities, he would be awarded the reward money. There's a story out there now that he's refusing it because he's so horrified, and he thinks that should go to the Kirk family. Hopefully that's confirmed anyway. But that's another thing that tells you that this kid was nothing like how they're trying to portray him in the media. Now keep it in mind. So same network, and yes, I'm picking on ABC for good reason because they deserve it. ABC. The first report we just had right there of the reporter, I'm sorry, I'm still laughing at that, describing the text messages the FBI dug up forensically between the assassin and his transgender lover. The reporter from ABC describing those words as very touching and very loving. Okay? Now keep that in mind. Later on, Jimmy Kimmel in his monologue trying to resurface the debunked argument and the absolute lie that Robinson was a MAGA Trump supporting guy, but he's saying that the MAGA Trump supporters are trying to do the opposite and try to distance him from them, trying to do everything they can to score political points and tell you that he was anything but them. Just absolutely ridiculous lies. This is what they do, and this is why I tell you, I don't think you would. But anybody you see in your life or hear and you talk to that said, well, I was watching that Jimmy Kimmel, and he said that the killer was a Trump supporter. This is how they do it and why they do it. This is why you can't let them. We all know what the deal is. Late night, quote unquote, comedy hasn't been what a lot of us in Gen X grew up with over the years. Letterman and even Leno, but especially Johnny Carson. It was always an escape from this stuff. And we really, really needed it because of, horrific stories happened in the 70s, 80s, and 90s too. But we had that escape where Johnny Carson would take shots at everybody. It was about getting away from the horrific stories of the world. How nice would it be if we had late night comedy now, not taking a side, not taking anybody's political talking points, not because that's exactly what this is. I mean, you know exactly who's giving Jimmy Kimmel his talking points. He has become a political mouthpiece for a certain political party. And I would be against it if it was the same on the other side. Trust me, I would. Late night comedy should be an escape from that kind of stuff where we can just laugh and come together. But they don't do that. They ruined that. When they took over the media, for the most part, and it's changing, I get it, and there's less and less people even believing them or believing ABC News or Jimmy Kimmel. I get that. Less influence, less relevance, but it's still there. And that's what they did to it. And it drives me crazy. And they're all like that. John Oliver, the guy on HBO, Colbert, who's finally getting canceled. It just became political talking points right from the desks of the political power players. This is why, in this particular network right here, ABC, from morning, noon, and night, trying to twist this story into something that's other than an assassination murder story and trying to soften the blow for you. Don't let them do it. And don't let other people around you buy that crap either, because that's the perfect argument for it. No, I heard that he was a MAGA guy. He was a Trump supporter. People that, the dimmest among us, or I shouldn't say that, maybe people who are just not as, topically aware of things that are going on, or can see through the lies, that they will still say that, sometimes no fault of their own. Correct them and say, no, that was completely debunked. You can even point him now. Digital media is everywhere. You can point him to that press conference, a little video of them reading the text messages between the assassin and his trans lover. Does that sound like a MAGA guy? Because once you hear that, those people go, oh, no, it doesn't at all. Don't let him twist this story. But as of right now, and it's changing, but as of right now, they're still in control of mainstream media. Which leads me to the next thing. Let's make this all about media. Because whether you like it or not, and I don't like it either, but it's a fact. It's just life. We have to deal with that. Where the kids, my kids for sure, where they get their news and information is still to this day the number one most influential outlet for them is TikTok. Which is why, and you're thinking, TikTok? I'm an adult. I don't have time for this. I don't even want to hear about it. I think you should. I think you should, because it is a massively, massively powerful platform for this generation right now, already, and going forward into the future. So that leads to the assumption. He who controls, or they who control TikTok, control the minds and the narrative of younger people going forward for a long, long time. I'll tell you something about TikTok, too, which has been kind of fascinating for people. They've done a lot of media studies on this already. It has organically, despite what they've tried to do, and this maybe ever since Trump got a TikTok account during the campaign, I don't know, or people like Charlie Kirk with his influence, or there are other people. It's way less biased than it used to be, but there's a good chance you're not going to see that right now, the way the algorithm works. Because you might know the background of the story. The U.S. has tried to force a sale of TikTok to other companies and open it up. They said it was over the data, theft that this Chinese ByteDance company, who has been controlled by the tentacles of the CCP. I mean, that's just fact. Ever since this thing has been around. So you make the connection. You've got the CCP controlling the narrative of our kids. That was the big problem. And they had the data, the users' data on it. That's why the U.S. said, we're going to force a sale for you to use this in the U.S. It has become more conservative recently. Not a lot, but there has been opposing opinion on this thing, and that happened just organically. But here's the really good news. Reportedly, not all the details are out, a sale framework is in place for TikTok. And also yesterday, President Trump extended the deadline for that sale to take place too. I think it's December. It's definitely December. I think it's like December 16th. Here's why that's great news. Because you know that it's not just about the data usage. That's the easiest thing to fix. Protecting users' data and that's security concern. Privacy security is is really important, obviously, especially with TikTok, where it's become a massive, also not just information, it's become a massive marketplace as well. So, and my kids do it too, buying stuff off TikTok store, marketplace, whatever the hell they call it. And I know you're not interested in TikTok. You're probably not on it a lot. I don't want to be either. Trust me. I'm not trying to be brave and strong here, going into the bowels of TikTok to see what's going on. But that's where the information flow is for Gen Z and young kids. It's a fact. It is. I have no interest in dancing nurses either. But through all that stuff is a lot of information where they find out what's going on. And here's the other thing with TikTok, why it's important. TikTok Live is a massively important thing for that demographic. Things going on, things on the street, what's happening right now. They'll find it there. Not on X, certainly not on Facebook. Try to talk to a kid under 20 about Facebook, they'll laugh in your face. And not even on Instagram is for pictures, but they get information from TikTok. So, a sale framework reportedly in the works for this. Let's find out who's... Now again, this is just a suggested framework of the deal. Nothing is confirmed yet, but here's supposedly how it's going to break out. Reportedly. This is like a combination of different reports. It supposedly would be 80% U.S. owned. That right there is massive, okay? Instead of so much influence from the Chinese CCP running ByteDance. U.S.-owned companies reportedly involved are Oracle, Silver Lake, and A16 Legacy Investors. 20% still Chinese-owned. ByteDance keeps a slice. Here's where it really gets important. TikTok in the future, if this does happen, in fact, would be with an American board with U.S. government oversight. Now, whenever you hear U.S. government oversight, you tend to think, oh boy. And I'm the same way, because it depends over here. Who's in power at the time, right? Of course but it's a hell of a lot better than the Chinese Communist Party oversight, which, hand to God, I'm telling you, that's what's been happening. So, new U.S.-only app with separate algorithm from global TikTok. Here's what they plan to do, which I just read this morning. It's a completely new app. They're going to blow up the old one, but the users would be able to keep their username and accounts, and you would just kind of like download a new TikTok app. The users would be happy because they can still do their stupid food videos or pranks or whatever the hell they do, right? But there's a lot more to TikTok than that. It would also expand, apparently, the algorithm to something that's not so biased. And if people are getting their news and information, especially young people, from TikTok, this is a massive thing. I can't even begin to tell you how important this is, if it works out that way. Now, in the future, could TikTok be taken over again because it's so very important? It's so powerful and influential? Of course it could. But it's a start, and it's better than what it was. So if you're worried about where your kids, where young people, anybody, just people in your community or society get their news, if this happens, things just got a lot better because it's been pretty rough so far. So let's see. Let's hope this deal goes through. I really want it to. And it tells you, too, that they continue to extend this deadline for the sale, and the fact that they insisted on a sale to get this out of there. All of these investors we just mentioned there, and this particular administration, they know how important this is to have the younger voters going forward. Trump said it himself. He said it many times. I think I've actually played the audio and video cuts of him saying how important it is to be able to have this and to be able to reach younger people, because he had a massive influence on this. Which should tell you it's actually a feather in his cap. As biased and as controlled by, again, Chinese CCP as that app is, as that platform is, he still did well on it. And he credits that with a big part of him winning his campaign. So we'll see what happens for it. But my message to you is keep an eye on this thing. If you don't care about TikTok, I don't blame you, because it's a different world over there. But who controls this narrative going future. It's a big story. We'll see. But again, the takeaway, don't let the media, specifically now, because they've been the worst so far, ABC, reframe this Charlie Kirk assassination story. It's nothing but a murder from a lunatic because he was full of hate of Charlie Kirk and anybody that disagrees with him. And that very same media we're picking on today, they did this. They twisted that mind. So don't let these news networks reframe it and lie about what it really is. And I know you wouldn't, but somebody in your life is going to buy that. Don't let them. Reframe it the other way. That's what. All right. Thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate you as always. Audio podcast listeners. Again, it's kind of like spotty internet. Well, I'll rely on the Canadian internet cell service today. Let's see how they do. I don't know. I'm in a different country today. You don't care about that. But I'll post the audio podcast as soon as I get off here as a replay on X and on YouTube and on Facebook. Appreciate you as always. You can find it everywhere and live on the live stream right here, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m.-ish Eastern Time. With that said, make it a wicked awesome day. Make it a wicked awesome Wednesday. I'll talk to you tomorrow.